watching NotesIn9.
Hello, and welcome to NotesIn9. I'm David Leedy. Episode 139, Single Copy X-Page Design. Who's next? Okay, before we get into the show, every now and then I do this, so I want to talk about giving back. If you notice, NotesIn9 is now on its 139th show of many, many hours, and there's a considerable amount of effort that goes into this process, not just by me, but by all the great contributors that I'm able to uh, beg, bribe with beer usually, or publicly shame into coming on the show. I have no scruples, so I'll use any technique that I can. But again, there is effort between me and the contributors in putting this show out and the content. I don't have any sponsors, and I don't have any advertising. So all I would ask is if you do like NotesIn9, remember that community is about giving and taking. So what I would ask you to do is to consider at least is to give something back to a community, whether it's the XPages community, whether it's the Notes community, whether it's your local community. I don't care. How do you give back? Well, you could answer a question on Stack Overflow or XPages forum. You could say, "Hey, thanks for the blog post." If someone's blogged a technique that you like or a video, whatever, you could share a tip on a wiki or a blog, or if somewhere there was a place that took videos, even on video, you could share on there and give back to the community. You could donate time to your local school or a church or some organization that needs it. You could help a neighbor. We had a lot of snow in this part of the world. You could help a neighbor shoveling snow. If they needed it. You can donate money to a worthy cause. Um, we've got a group of community members that's doing this Dash for Dosh, and I donated some money to them. I like to try to find something at least once a year in the community or so, but it doesn't matter where. But the Dash for Dosh is this group of community members that they get on their motorbikes, and they're basically going to ride to the Arctic Circle and back, and they're trying to raise money to go to a cancer research. And I've got some links here if you'd like to donate. And there is a bonus here. One of the members is Paul Mooney, who's a longtime member of the community, and he is I don't know how to say it. He's kind of vertically challenged, I guess is the nice word. So if you do donate, you are allowed to make fun of his height. Basically, is what he posted at one point. So that's a deal that I couldn't pass up. So feel free to donate to Dash for Dosh or any other charity that you're a backer of. But give something back to the community, and it's all about give and take. Okay, so I'm really excited about today's show, and I've got a brand new contributor, and I wish I would have music on here, but I just don't want to get arrested because this contributor, the negotiations were tough. It's over 2 years in the making, and it came down to I just needed to publicly shame him. So his name is none other than Andrew Barickman, who I talked about in the last show. I threw this picture up. I even broke out Pixelmator. That's how much effort I put into this. And I offered a $9 reward, and I will be donating $9 to a worthy local charity. I do promise you that. So who is he? Andrew Barickman works at PSC, which is a really super great consulting firm. His Twitter handle is AJ Barickman, and he's got some contact information coming in his demo, so I'll leave that there for now. And he's just he's a pivotal part of an amazing XPages team. So if you do have XPages needs, if there's something that you're struggling with or so, you can reach out to PSC, I'm sure, and they can help you. There's a lot of community members on this team. I know I'm going to miss some names, but I'll give it a shot. There's Marky Roden, who's done some great blog posts on the jQuery and has come on to Notes9. There is Brad Basilatis, and I'm sure I mispronounced that, who's done all this dojo stuff right now, and he's come on Notes9. Kathy Brown, I've spoken with her at IBM Connect, and she's a regular speaker. Troy Reamer, I believe, is on the team. Will Howe, I think there's another one. I'm not sure. It's just an amazing team, and if you do have XPages needs or help, you would probably do fairly well if you went to PSC. Okay, so what he's going to talk about today is a very interesting topic, I think, is single copy X page design. And this comes from, I think, a talk that he did at almost even MW like a couple years ago. But single copy X page design is not something that I've seen too much information about out there in the community for as important as it is. And we use this heavily in the day job. Okay, so what is it? Well, it's kind of like having all these databases that are built off one XPages template, but all the XPages code doesn't live in those databases. It lives in a single database itself, and then these other databases just kind of like pull from it and share from it. Okay, and it's very nice if you have a lot of databases, you can save some space. So like in the day job, we put our XPages code in like what this master database we call it, and then the views and data go into as many slave databases. Again, these are our terms that you want. And you can put forms in there too, but forms aren't really that necessary. But the views need to go in there, and obviously your data goes in there. So your master template only has XPages code, and that will feed these slave databases. Okay, and then once you change your master database, then they all will get updated. And each slave database maintains its own scope because it's its own database. There's no like application scope that spans every database or so. It's just like the code is in that database. Now, it is a little tough sometimes because when you test things and you're developing or so, I find that you have to restart the HTTP server often for those changes to like get into place for testing, and after promotions, and stuff like that. So just be careful of that. And when you do restart your HTTP server, you want to use the restart task HTTP because that restarts more than if you do like tell HTTP restart or whatever that other admin command is. But single copy XPages design works very well. How well does it work, David? Well, in the day job, in a system that Declan Lynch designed and architected, we use it to feed, I don't know, maybe 60,000 NSFs on a server. So the just the storage space savings alone is for us is extremely significant, and we basically run our business on this concept. So it's a beautiful thing. Okay, so with all that being said, let's go to Mr. Andrew Barickman and his demo.
Hello and welcome to this NotesIn9 on single copy XPage design and XPiNC performance. This is a podcast that's been promised to David for over a year. It actually is some content that was presented at Connect 2013. So after a good public kicking by David, I figured it was probably about time to get myself in gear and get this thing done. So thank you, David, for the opportunity, even though I kind of suck. So, as I said, my name is Andrew Barickman. I'm the practice leader for the collaboration practice at PSE Group in Chicago. My contact information is listed down here: Twitter, AJ Barickman, and email abarickman@pselistens if you want to reach out. So today I'm going to talk about some performance-related information that can greatly increase certain types of applications and the performance in certain types of applications. As we all know, if your application is the coolest thing in the world, but it doesn't actually perform well, then no one really cares. So hopefully some of the pointers that I'm going to give you guys today will help you to maximize the performance of some of the databases you have in your environment. So the first layer of performance increases that I'm going to talk about is single copy XPage design. Single copy XPage design has been around for a little while, but it's something that, in my experience with our customers, we rarely see people implement, even when it should be implemented. So what single copy XPage design is essentially the ability for the Notes client and the Domino server to be able to cache resources from a single database and then use those resources even if you access a number of different databases. So the scenario in which single copy XPage design works is a team room type application. It doesn't have to be team room, it's not specific to that, but this is the scenario that it typically works in. So if you have a number of databases that all have the same design, So team rooms is a scenario for that, or kind of project management databases. Oftentimes you'll create a new NSF for each engagement. When that's the scenario, this is a performance tweak that you should definitely be looking to implement. It has benefits both the Notes client and for web browser and even efficiency of the server, which we'll discuss as we go on. So it's a very simple concept, but a powerful one. So if we take a look at what we've got here, we've got a team room 1, a team room 2, and then a database called SCXD team room, which is just a copy of either of those team rooms, because remember they have exactly the same design. So all we're doing is making a copy. Notice the pathing here, the XPages 1 server and the SCXD TR NSF. So if we do just those steps, we haven't enabled anything yet. We open up one of the team rooms. In this case, you can see on the tab it says team room 2. What we'll notice is the style sheet is being loaded from XSP/XPages1 bang bang SCXD team room 2, right? So it's acting as you would expect. The resources are being loaded out of the NSF in which we opened it. That's the default behavior and makes perfect sense. So to enable XPage, single copy XPage design, you open it up in Domino Designer. In the application properties, notice we're setting this in application properties for the team room. We tell that team room NSF to utilize the single copy XPage design in the scxdtr.nsf database. So that's all there is to configuring it. Once you check that box and supply a path, make sure you get the path right, then the benefits will start to be available. So if we were to now shut down the Notes client and reopen it, or if you just refresh your web browser, notice that if we access one of those team rooms now, the resource that we see, so in this case a style sheet, happens to be loaded from XPages1 bang bang scxdtr.nsf. So it's no longer loading that style sheet from the team room database. It's loading the resource directly out of the single copy XPage design database. So this provides some pretty significant performance increases. So if you had a number of these team room databases, and me as an end user was using, say, a web browser or a Notes client, and I was moving between those databases on a daily basis. So team room 1 now, and then team room 2. Think of these, and perhaps these are engagements or information about a particular client. And as I moved from database to database, default behavior would be I would be caching essentially identical resources for things like images and style sheets and JavaScript files over and over on my client, where it's really unnecessary because we know that they're the same. When we reference them as part of single copy XPage design, that no longer happens. So the browser cache or the Notes cache would store one copy of that resource, and that resource would then be the same, and it would be used over and over whether you switch between databases. So that obviously provides a performance increase because it doesn't have to keep downloading duplicate or redundant resources. In addition, though, this also increases server efficiency because on the server side, it too can cache a single resource and then supply that resource even if end users are accessing, a myriad of different databases. So efficiency of your server increases quite a bit as well. So if you're just using a browser-based application, enabling single copy XPage design can be greatly beneficial. If you happen to be using XPiNC and you're using this application in a Notes client, then there's additional capabilities that are available to you to increase performance with IBM NotesIn9 Social Edition. So let's take a look at those. So to continue down the path, we've now created a local replica of that single copy XPage design database. So nothing else. All we have to do is ensure that it's in the same path that it was when it's on the server. So now we have a local copy of it. So now if I open the server-based copy of the team room, so you see XPages1, the resource that's actually being displayed is scxdtr.nsf local. Notice it's not XPages bang bang, it's a local resource. So although we're accessing a server-based resource, our Notes client is using the local copy of the NSF file for its resources. So as you can imagine, XPiNC performs poorly in large part because it is going across the wire for all of its communication. This allows it to use a local copy that's already on the client end to be able to access resources. So that is extremely beneficial and increases performance greatly. What actually happens is that the Notes client is smart enough to look first local, and then it will gracefully fail over to a server-based copy. So say you have that copy on XPages 1, but you don't have the local NSF file, this will still work fine. So it allows you to enable it and then write the code or policies or however you want to distribute those local NSF files. And once you've done it, you'll get this increased performance benefit without any additional steps required for admins or other people. If you're using the Notes client, you can layer on another capability on top of that and increase performance further. So Notes has had the capability for a while to be able to preload Notes databases. So there's a couple parameters that you add to the NotesIN9, the XPages preload equals 1 and the XPages preload DB. And if those two notes.ini parameters are in place, what it essentially tells the Notes client is before anybody clicks on any of the workspace icons, go ahead and load the resources required for that database before the user actually gets there. So you can imagine if you had an extremely complicated database, that database had tons and tons of resources that were required for it, you can tell it to load this database's resources. So that by itself is pretty powerful. You can access a server-based resource too here. Now, if you were to take what we just showed you and this capability and use them in conjunction, you get even greater performance. So in this scenario, we are pointing the database to scxdtr.nsf locally and the home.xsp page. Now what will happen is it will access the local resource. It will preload all of the resources required for it, and then the first time you hit any of those team room applications, you could have 50, 100, 1,000 of them, the resources for that team room database will already have been cached and will be available such that when you double click on that icon in the workspace, the thing will pop up quickly because those resources have already been cached and are ready to go. That's a huge increase in performance in many scenarios that we've seen. So it begs the question though, if I did that and I configured those parameters, how do I know whether it's actually doing anything? Well, first case is hopefully you notice a performance increase, but when I originally did this, I couldn't tell whether it was doing something or not, which made me think, I don't know if there isn't a performance increase, or I don't know if I misconfigured it. So in order to determine whether your preloading is working, find the icon for loading Lotus Notes. This is a Windows scenario, sorry Mac people. Not exactly sure how you do that, but I'm sure there's capability to do so. And add to the end of the target line a -rparams-console. And then what that's going to do is actually load the OSGI console that will look like this. So when you log into the Notes into the Notes client, it's going to pop up another window. That window is going to be the OSGI console, and it gives you all kinds of additional information. It's useful for debugging locally and other things like that. But in our scenario, we just want to have that pop up so we can determine whether preloading is actually occurring, and if so, whether it's effective or not. So after we've loaded, we can go check the OSGI console, and you see in red there, you're going to be able to verify that it's preloading XPages classes. JSF config took 375 milliseconds, and then it's talking about that the module load took 733 milliseconds. So by being able to look at that console, we now know, okay, I'm getting the benefits of preloading, and therefore hopefully should see a great performance increase. So clearly your benefit will vary depending on things like your WAN or LAN connection, how resource heavy your applications are, but in our experience at PSC, we've seen massive increases in performance, particularly in XPiNC. So we saw 2 to 3 times as fast for kind of normal things like opening views or documents and so forth, and then we've seen up to 10 times as fast for initial database open when we've got kind of really complex applications. So hopefully these performance increases or these performance tweaks will you find a use for. I think that they are very valuable to know, and so hopefully you can get some use out of it.
And that's the demo. And I really want to thank Andrew for coming on and being a good sport as I had a little fun with him yesterday. For the record, I did give him fair warning before I did that show last week that the possibility existed, and he took it with a good spirit. So I do thank him for that. And if you have any questions for me, here's my information, and I thank you for your time.